The smell of cheap beer and desperation hung thick in the Marriott ballroom. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry wasps. 20-year reunion music thumped from speakers that had seen better decades. Look who decided to show up. Brad Henley's voice cut through the noise like a rusty blade. He stood there in his $1,000 suit, flanked by his usual crew of Askissers. Same smirk he'd worn in high school when he'd stuffed me into lockers. Tommy Martinez, class nobody, still playing soldier boy, the circle of former classmates. Closed in? Phones came out. Someone started recording. I stood there in my thrift store blazer, feeling every eye in the room turn toward us like spotlights. The DJ cut the music. Even the bartender stopped pouring. 20 years. 20 fucking years and they still see the same scared kid. 20 years later, and you're still a fucking joke? Brad continued, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent room. What are you now, some weekend warrior? National Guard? My company's defense contracts are worth more than your entire unit's annual budget? Laughter rippled through the crowd. Not the good kind. The kind that strips flesh from bone, I felt. My service coin pressed against my chest through my shirt pocket. The weight of it. The memory of what it meant. What it cost. Cat got your tongue, Martinez. Brad stepped closer. Or maybe you're just realizing how pathetic your life turned out. We all made something of ourselves. You're still... The sound started low, distant, like thunder rolling across a prairie. Then it got louder. The chandeliers began to shake. Wine glasses trembled on tables. The massive windows facing the parking lot rattled in their frames. Everyone looked around confused, phones still recording, still laughing. The sound became a roar. Then a scream of turbine engines. They have no idea what's coming. A Black Hawk helicopter descended from the night sky. Landing lights blazed through the windows. The rotor wash sent cars rocking in the parking lot. It touched down on the hotels. Front lawn with military precision. The laughter died in their throats like strangled birds. 2 soldiers in full battle dress stepped out. They moved with the fluid grace of professionals. Combat boots crunched across gravel toward the hotel entrance. But something was wrong. The lead soldier's face was grim. His hand rested on his sidearm. This wasn't a routine pickup. The helicopter's engines wound down to silence. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I watched the soldiers approach. Their movements were urgent. Tactical. This wasn't a courtesy call. Grandmother's voice echoed in my memory. Your grandfather died for this country, mijo. Honor means something. The soldiers entered the ballroom. Their eyes swept the crowd with mechanical precision. Everyone stepped back instinctively. Brad's mouth hung open like a broken gate. Sir! The sergeant looked directly at me. Colonel Martinez, we need to move. Priority Alpha. The room went dead silent. You could hear hearts stopping. 22 years for tours. 2 Bronze Stars, a Silver Star I never talk about, and they think I'm a joke. I joined the Army at 18. Straight out of high school, while Brad went to his daddy's alma mater, I went to Fort Benning. While he pledged a fraternity, I earned my Ranger tab. While he played beer pong, I learned to hunt monsters in the mountains of Afghanistan. Colonel, the sergeant waited. Behind him, his partner's radio crackled with urgent chatter. Code words I recognized. Code operation names that made my blood run. Cold. I looked at Brad. His face had gone pale as hospital sheets. The phones were still recording. Good. Let them record this. Stand down, Sergeant. This is personal time. Sir, the Pentagon. I said stand down. The sergeant snapped to attention. Yes, sir. Day. The same people who laughed at me in high school, who called me a loser, who never knew I carried their freedom on my shoulders. I walked to the center of the room. Avria followed me. The same people who'd laughed minutes ago now looked like they'd seen a ghost. A dangerous ghost. You want to know what I do, Brad? A voice carried in the silence. I hunt monsters. You know, the kind that hide in boardrooms and think money makes them bulletproof. Brad's bodyguard stepped forward. I held up one finger. He froze. Tomorrow. Morning, your world ends. Tonight, I'm just a guy at his high school reunion. The helicopter's engines began spooling up again. The sergeant's radio crackled again. This time, I heard the words clearly. Henley Group compromised. All assets moving. My blood turned to ice. They knew we were coming. Back in my hotel room, I stripped off the thrift store blazer. Underneath my body told stories Brad's crowd would never understand: shrapnel scars from Kandahar, burn marks from a roadside bomb outside Fallujah, each one a lesson in survival. 3 months of intelligence work. 3 months of watching, waiting, building the case that would bring down the Henley Group. I opened my laptop. The screen flickered to life, showing encrypted files that didn't officially exist. Grid coordinates, bank account numbers, surveillance photos, digital evidence of crimes that would shake the foundations of power. My secure phone buzzed. Phoenix. This is Overwatch. Phoenix here. Target is mobile. Henley's leaving the reunion. 2-car convoy heading toward his compound. They're moving fast. Something spooked them. Through my window, I watched Brad's Bentley pull away from the hotel. Behind it, a black SUV filled with private security. I thought money could protect them. They were about to learn otherwise. The reunion was a mistake. I should have stayed in the shadows. Now they know I'm here. Maintain distance. Let him run home to Daddy. I've been hunting the Henley Group for months. What started as a routine investigation into defense contract fraud had become something uglier. Human trafficking, arms dealing, money laundering through charity foundations. It's the kind of evil that required special handling. My fingers found the challenge coin in my pocket. Regiment motto etched in Latin: death before dishonor. Simple words. Absolute meaning. The tactical gear came out of the false bottom of my suitcase. Body armor, night vision, weapons that would never appear on any government inventory. Tools for work that happened in shadows. 22 years of service, 22 years of honor. All of it leading to this moment. Overwatch, this is Phoenix. I'm going dark. Copy that. Happy hunting. I checked my watch. 200 hours. The world slept while monsters played. But tonight the monster would meet something worse. Something that had learned to kill in places where mercy was a luxury nobody could afford. The mirror reflected a stranger, not the broken man from the reunion. This was the operator who'd earned his stars the hard way. Blood and bullets and decisions that carved pieces from your soul. But as I prepared to leave, my phone buzzed with an encrypted message, 4 words that changed everything. They have Kelly hostage. Henley compound squatted on 50 acres outside Austin like a concrete. Cancer. Guard towers. Razor wire. Motion sensors. Private military contractors walking patrol routes with automatic weapons. Looked like a forward operating base, but something was different. Too many guards. Too much movement. They're expecting. Company. Kelly. Master Sergeant Kelly Ryan. 20-year veteran. Sniper. My spotter in Afghanistan. The best soldier I'd ever served with. I lay prone in the tree line, watching through night vision. The green-tinted world revealed secrets. The naked I couldn't see. Shift changes. Blind spots. The rhythm of men who'd grown too comfortable with routine. Phoenix, this is Raven 2. I'm in position. Sergeant Marcus Thompson's voice crackled through my earpiece. Demo expert. Urban warfare specialist. The kind of soldier who could level a building with household chemicals. Copy Raven 2. Any sign of Raven 1? Negative. But I've got eyes on the server room. Northeast corner, 2nd floor. Kelly's out there somewhere, probably being tortured for information, for the names of our contacts, our safe houses, everything. Plan was surgical. Get in, find Kelly, download the files, get out. No casualties unless absolutely necessary. But plans rarely survived contact with the enemy. I moved through the darkness like smoke, combat boots silent on pine needles. Every step calculated, every breath controlled. This wasn't my first dance with death. The perimeter fence went down. 2 wire cutters. Motion sensors died to electronic warfare. I slipped through their defenses like a ghost through walls. In Afghanistan, Kelly once held off an entire Taliban squad while I called in air support. She never left a man behind. Neither would I. Raven 2, I'm inside the wire. Copy. I count 8 tangos on patrol. You're clear to the building. The server room lock yielded to digital skeleton keys. Inside, computer screens cast blue light. Across rows of humming hardware is the digital heart of the Henley Empire. All their dirty secrets stored in silicon and steel. My fingers flew across the keyboard. Bank transfers to shell companies. Communication logs with known arms dealers. Video. Files that would end careers and topple governments. 60% complete. 70. 80. Phoenix, you've got company. 2 guards heading your way. The footsteps grew closer. Heavy boots on tile. Casual conversation about weekend plans they'd never see. 90%. Come on, to download. Finished with a soft chime. Digital evidence of crimes that would shake the foundations of power. I pocketed the drive and turned toward the window, but waiting in the shadows was a familiar figure. Kelly Ryan, alive, unharmed, and pointing up. Gun directly at my chest. "Hello, Tommy," she said. "We need to talk." "You're supposed to be dead," I said, not moving. Kelly's finger rested on the trigger. Her stance was perfect, professional. If she wanted me dead, I'd already be bleeding out on the floor. "The Henley Group made me an offer," she said. "Enough. Money to buy my silence. Enough to disappear. 20 years of friendship. 20 years of trust? Had it all been a lie? Since when do you care about money, Kelly? Since I realize we're fighting a war we can't win. The system is rigged, Tommy. It always has been. The good guys don't always win." The gun never wavered. But something in her eyes wasn't right. Too much tension. Too much fear. This wasn't the Kelly Ryan I knew. "They have my daughter," she whispered. "She's 8 years old. They'll kill her if I don't deliver you." Relief flooded through me. Kelly wasn't a traitor. She was a mother, protecting her child. Where is she? Safe house in Houston. 3 guards, professional contractors. They'll execute her if I don't check. In every 6 hours, I stepped closer. The gun followed me. Die publicly, spectacularly, in a way that sends a message to anyone else thinking about crossing the Henley Group. The window exploded inward. Glass shards filled the air like deadly snow. Thompson's voice screamed through my earpiece. "It's a trap. They've got the building surrounded. They'd been one step ahead all along." Kelly's capture. The server room. Everything had been orchestrated to get me here. Spotlights blazed to life outside. Automatic weapons chattered. The building shook under the impact of heavy caliber rounds. "Kelly, we need to move." "I can't. If they think I helped you, they're going to kill us both anyway." The realization hit her like a physical blow.
Ow.
Henley Group didn't leave witnesses. They never had. Her daughter was probably already dead. But as we prepared to fight our way out, Kelly's radio crackled with a voice I recognized. Brad Henley himself. "Martinez, I know you're in there.
Oh, you're...
Come out with your hands up, and maybe I'll let your girlfriend live." Through the shattered window, I could see him standing behind an armored vehicle, smug, confident, still wearing that same smirk from high school. "What's it going to be, hero?" The cargo plane sat on the tarmac like a metal vulture. Floodlights turned night into artificial day. Private security walked patrol routes with military precision. This was supposed to be our final play, Kelly's. Daughter was dead. We'd confirmed it 3 hours ago. Executed the moment they'd grabbed Kelly. The whole thing had been a setup. I lay in the grass beyond the runway, watching through binoculars. The weapons crates were being loaded. Assault rifles, explosives, equipment that would fuel cartel wars and kill innocent people. "Phoenix, this is Raven 2. I'm in position." "Copy, demo charges set." "Affirmative." One word and that plane becomes scrap metal. Kelly knelt beside me in the grass. Her face was stone. Her daughter's death had carved something essential from her soul. "This is for Emma," she whispered. The plan was simple. Thompson would disable the aircraft. Kelly would provide Overwatch. I would secure the evidence and arrest Henley. Clean, professional, by the book. But as I moved toward the plane, everything went wrong at once. Spotlights blazed to life. Automatic weapons chattered. The grass around me exploded in geysers of dirt and blood. I rolled behind a concrete barrier as bullets whined overhead. It's a trap. Kelly's voice screamed through my earpiece. They were waiting for us. Of course they were. They'd been one step ahead all along, playing us like chess. Pieces, muzzle flashes lit the darkness like deadly fireflies. I counted at least 20 shooters, professional contractors with military-grade weapons. This wasn't airport security. This was a small army. Thompson, blow the plane? I can't. They've got me pinned down. I felt the challenge coin through my vest, the weight of it, the memory of what it meant. My grandfather's words echoed across the years. Honor means something. But honor wasn't stopping the bullets. Honor wasn't bringing Kelly's daughter back. Honor wasn't going to save us. Kelly, can you get a shot? Negative. Too much cover. A grenade exploded 20 feet away. Shrapnel peppered the concrete. I tasted blood and cordite and the bitter flavor of defeat. The plane's engine spooled up. In minutes, it would be airborne with its cargo of death. Everything we'd fought for would disappear into the night sky. 22 years of service. 22 years of honor. All of it about to mean nothing. Phoenix, we need to go. Kelly's voice carried desperation. This is over. I looked at the challenge coin. My grandfather's face stared back from the metal. Same man who died believing in something bigger than himself. The plane began its taxi toward the runway, victory slipping away like smoke. But sometimes, when everything falls apart, you find out what you're really made of. I keyed my radio, not to Kelly or Thompson, to a frequency I'd hoped never to use again. Overwatch, this is Phoenix. Authorization. Code CR Alpha 7. Execute Order Black Dawn. The night sky erupted in thunder. The sound of rotors cut through the gunfire like salvation. But these weren't ordinary helicopters. Apache gunships descended from the night sky in perfect formation. Her chain guns spoke with the voice of God. Order Black Dawn. The nuclear option. The thing we'd hoped never to use. This is Colonel Martinez. My voice boomed through the lead Apache's loudspeakers. Stand down immediately or face the consequences. The contractors' weapons fire slackened. Confusion rippled through their ranks. They'd been told this was a simple cleanup operation. Nobody had mentioned fighting Apache gunships. 22 years of service, 22 years of building relationships, earning trust, Rangers fast-roped, from Blackhawks full battle dress, night vision. The kind of soldiers who ate private contractors for breakfast. Within minutes, the tarmac was secure. Phoenix, this is Overwatch. Package is secure. Extraction is ready. But I wasn't ready to extract. Not yet, not until I looked Brad Henley in the eye and showed him what real power looked like. Kelly's daughter, Emma, 8 years old. Executed like an animal because her mother tried to do the right thing. I stood up from behind the concrete barrier. Blood ran down my face from shrapnel cuts. My vest was riddled with bullet holes. But I was alive. More importantly, I was furious. Henley, I shouted across the tarmac. Come out here and face me? The cargo plane sat motionless, engines winding down. The weapons crates were being secured by Army personnel. Evidence that would end careers and topple governments. Henley emerged from the aircraft with his hands raised. Even in defeat, he wore that same smirk from high school. Some things never changed, but some things did. The scared kid he'd bullied was gone. In his place stood something harder. Something forged in the mountains of Afghanistan. You can't touch me, he said as Rangers zip-tied his wrists. I have connections. Lawyers. This won't stick. I walked up to him slowly. Every step deliberate. Every breath controlled. Years of service had taught me patience, but patience had limits. You're right, I said. I can't touch you. I pulled out my secure phone. Speed dialed a number that connected directly to the Pentagon. General Morrison's voice answered on the First ring. This is Phoenix. The package is secure. Send the lawyers. But there was more. Something I'd been saving for this moment. In general. Execute the financial protocol. Authorization Phoenix 77 Alpha. Henley's smirk finally died. What financial protocol? I looked him in the eye. The one that just froze every asset. You own every bank account, every investment, every trust fund. All of it. Gone. His face went white. That's impossible. Those accounts are protected by laws that don't apply to enemy combatants. Congratulations, Brad. You're now classified as a terrorist. The JAG officers arrived by helicopter. Okay. Military lawyers with briefcases full of federal charges. But they brought something else. Something that made my blood run cold. Colonel Martinez, the lead attorney, said, "We need to talk. It's about the president." The Situation Room in the Pentagon was smaller than I'd expected. Concrete walls, fluorescent, lights. The kind of place where careers died and nations fell. The president. Jesus Christ, how high did this go? Colonel Martinez, General Morrison gestured to a chair. What I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels. Eyes only. Compartmentalized. The briefing materials were spread across the table. Photographs, financial records, communication intercepts. The scope of the conspiracy was staggering. The Henley Group wasn't just selling weapons to cartels, Morrison continued. They were selling military intelligence. Troop movements, operational security protocols, things that got our people killed. I thought of Kelly's daughter. Of all the soldiers who died because of information sold for profit. How long have you known? 6 months. We've been building the case carefully, methodically. But when you went rogue, you forced our hand. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank transfers from foreign intelligence services, communication logs with known terrorists, video files that would end presidencies. Sir, what about the president? Morrison's expression grew grave. He's been briefed. He's authorized full disclosure, no matter where it leads. The president. A man I'd served faithfully for 4 years. A man I'd trusted with my life. Colonel, we need you to testify. Public hearing. Full disclosure. The American people deserve to know the truth. I looked at the challenge coin on the table. It's the same coin that had carried me through Afghanistan, through the darkest moments of my service, through the night Kelly's daughter died. What about protection? Witness security? We'll provide what we can. But you're essentially declaring war on some of the most powerful people in the world. Some things were worth dying for. Some things were worth more than life itself. When do we start? The hearing room was packed. C-SPAN cameras captured every word. The same media that had ignored the story for months now hung on every syllable. I sat at the witness table in my dress uniform. Every ribbon earned. Every medal, a story of service and sacrifice. The challenge coin rested on the table beside my prepared statement. Colonel Martinez, Senator Williams leaned into his microphone. Please tell the committee what you discovered. Truth. Finally, after months of shadows and lies and death, the Henley Group operated as a criminal enterprise. Arms trafficking, money laundering. But worse than that, they were selling American soldiers' lives for profit. The room erupted in whispers. Cameras flashed. This was bigger than Watergate, bigger than anything in American political history. And the president's involvement? I looked directly into the camera. The same lens that had recorded my humiliation at the reunion, this time I controlled the narrative. The president was briefed on the investigation. He authorized full disclosure. He chose country over politics. Some things were bigger than politics. Some things were about honor. But as I testified, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Several committee members were texting frantically, their faces pale, worried. Something was wrong, something beyond the scope of the hearing. Colonel Martinez, Senator Wilson interrupted. Are you aware of the executive order signed 1 hour ago? No, sir. The president has been declared unfit for office. The vice president has assumed power. And you, Colonel, have been declared a traitor. The federal courthouse in Austin was surrounded by armed federal agents. Not the FBI. Not the marshals. Private contractors with military-grade weapons. The same kind of people who'd killed Kelly's daughter? They'd moved fast. Too fast. The vice president had been bought and paid for. The whole system was rigged. I sat in the defendant's chair in orange prison scrubs. The dress uniform was gone. The medals were gone. Everything I'd worked for had been stripped away. "All rise," the bailiff called. The Honorable Judge Patricia Morrison presiding. Judge Morrison was a small woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen everything. She'd been a prosecutor. Before taking the bench, the kind of lawyer who'd built her career on putting bad people away. But even she looked nervous. Even she understood what was at stake. "Colonel Martinez," she said, consulting her notes, "you stand accused of treason, sedition, conspiracy against the United States government. How do you plead?" My lawyer, a young JAG officer named Captain Sarah Chen, started to speak, but I held up my hand. "Your Honor, I'd like to represent myself. Colonel, I strongly advise against Your Honor. I've spent 22 years serving this country. I've bled for it. I've killed for it. I've watched good people die for it. And I'll be damned if I'm going to let lawyers decide my fate." Challenge coin was gone, confiscated as evidence. But the values it represented lived on. "Very well. How do you plead?" "Not guilty, Your Honor. Not guilty to all charges." The trial lasted 3 days. The prosecution presented their case with surgical precision. Classified documents. Testimony from government officials. Evidence that painted me as a rogue operator who'd endangered national security. But they made one mistake. They underestimated the truth. "Your Honor," I said. During closing arguments, I didn't betray my country. I saved it. I presented the evidence we'd gathered. The financial records, the communication intercepts, the video files that showed the real conspiracy. The Henley Group wasn't just selling weapons. They were selling American soldiers' lives. They were selling our nation's security to the highest. Bitter. Kelly's daughter, Emma, 8 years old. Her face haunted every word. "Your Honor, the prosecution wants you to believe that exposing corruption is treason, that protecting American lives is sedition. But I say that real treason is staying silent when you know people are dying." The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, their faces were grim. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" "We have, Your Honor. On all charges, we find the defendant not guilty." The courtroom erupted. Cheers. Applause. The sound of justice finally being served. But as I walked out of the courthouse, I knew the real battle was just beginning. The ranch outside Austin was quiet in the pre-dawn darkness. 50 acres of Texas. Sky and the kind of peace that money couldn't buy. I sat on the porch, watching the sun rise over land that finally belonged to me. 6 months since the trial. 6 months of rebuilding. Of healing. The challenge coin sat on the table beside my coffee. The same coin that had carried me through Afghanistan, through the darkest moments of my service. Through the night Kelly's daughter died, but it felt different. Now, lighter. The weight of responsibility finally shared. My phone buzzed with a text from Thompson. "New mission briefing tomorrow. You in?" I looked at the message for a long time. There were other Brad Henleys out there. Their monsters hiding in boardrooms and government offices. The war never really ended, but the system was different now. The president had been reinstated. The vice president had been arrested. The Henley Group's assets had been liquidated. The money donated to military families. Kelly's daughter would never come back. But other daughters would live because of what we'd done. The VA hospital in Tampa smelled like disinfectant and hope. I walked the halls in civilian clothes, visiting soldiers who'd given pieces of themselves for freedom. Their battles were different from mine, but the war was the same. Colonel Martinez, young sergeant, looked up from his hospital bed, both legs gone below the knee. "Eyed outside Kabul. I'd heard about what you did. Thank you." "You don't need to thank me," I said. "You're the hero here." But he was right. We'd reminded the world that honor still meant something. I spent the morning with the wounded warriors, listening to their stories. Sharing their pain. Challenge coin was back in my pocket, but the weight of responsibility was shared now. Later. I sat in the hospital cafeteria with Dr. Sarah Chen, the psychiatrist who'd been helping me process everything. PTSD wasn't just about combat. It was about carrying the weight of decisions that carved pieces from your soul. "How are you sleeping?" she asked. "Better. The nightmares are less frequent." And the anger. I thought about Brad Henley and his federal prison cell. About the weapons shipments that would never reach their destinations. About the soldiers who would come home alive because of what we'd done. Emma's face was still there. Would always be there. But now it was surrounded by others. Soldiers who'd lived. Families who'd stayed whole. "It's not anger anymore," I said. "It's purpose." The afternoon found me back at the ranch. The phone had been quiet all day. No crisis calls. No urgent briefings. Just the sound of wind through the trees and the distant lowing of cattle. Thompson's text was still on my phone. "New mission briefing tomorrow." "You in?" I looked at the challenge coin. 22 years of service, 22 years of honor. The things that made the fight worthwhile. There were other monsters out there, other conspiracies, other Emmas who needed protecting. Tomorrow, I'd put on the uniform again. Tonight I was finally at peace. The helicopter's engine noise had faded to memory. The laughter of bullies had been replaced by the quiet satisfaction of justice served. I picked up my phone and typed a simple response. "Send me the details."
8.
The sun set over the Texas horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Somewhere in the distance, a night bird called. The sound of freedom. Sometimes the underdog wins. Sometimes honor triumphs over corruption. And sometimes the joke gets the last laugh. But the real victory wasn't in the winning. It was in the fighting and standing up when others stayed down. In choosing honor over comfort. The challenge coin caught the last rays of sunlight. On one side, the regiment motto, "Death before dishonor." On the other, a simple inscription. "For Emma." The war never really ended, but that was okay. Some fights were worth having forever.